So get this. What if the secret to making steel tough enough for a nuclear reactor came down to just a tiny pinch of a single element? I know, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But this is the absolute cutting edge of material science. Let's dig in and see what's going on. I mean, this is one of the huge questions in engineering today. How do you build stuff? We're talking jet engines, power plants, even spacecraft that can handle insane amounts of heat and pressure without just falling apart. It's a massive challenge. All right, so let's zero in on a specific kind of material that's right at the heart of this problem, 9% chromium steels. Now, all that means is that 9% of the steel's recipe is chromium, and that's the stuff that helps it fight off rust and heat. These steels are the real workhorses inside power plants, both thermal and nuclear. And believe me, they are under constant, brutal attack. And you see this term here, structural instabilities. It's a very scientific, very polite way of saying the material can just unpredictably get weak and fail. And when we're talking about a nuclear power plant, you can probably guess that failure is not on the menu. It's just not an option. So you can see why scientists have been desperately searching for a more stable, more reliable supersteel. So with a problem that big, how do you even begin to solve it? Well, it turns out the answer might be surprisingly small. Let's talk about an element called boron. And look, this isn't just some wild guess. The research backs it up. This quote here says that adding boron to these steels has both delayed and altered the failure modes. That's huge. It doesn't just stop the steel from breaking, it actually changes the way it breaks. And that gives metallurgists a massive clue about what's really happening deep down at the microscopic level. So, that's the big question, isn't it? How can a tiny, tiny amount of this one element, we're talking about measured in parts per million, really make steel that much better? To figure that out, the researchers had to get super precise in how they measured boron's effects. And the way they did it was by focusing on two key ideas, sensitivity and stability. Honestly, if you can wrap your head around these two concepts, you've pretty much unlocked the secret to this whole study. Okay, let's break it down real simple. Sensitivity is basically asking, how much does the steel change when you add some boron? And stability is asking, is that change predictable? Does it always go in the same direction? So, for sensitivity, think of it like this. It's the rate of change you get for every little bit of boron you add. It's kind of like measuring how sensitive your skin is to the sun. In steel terms, if a property has high sensitivity, just a tiny sprinkle of boron causes a huge change. You get a lot of bang for your buck. And then you've got stability, which is just as crucial. A property is stable if the change you see always goes in one fixed direction. So adding more boron always makes it stronger, or always makes it less flexible. It's predictable, like a train on its tracks. And for the engineers building a reactor, trust me, predictability is everything. Okay, so the researchers have their tools, right? Sensitivity and stability. They go to work. And what do they find? Well, it turns out boron is a little complicated. You could say it's a bit of a double-edged sword. But hey, let's start with the good news, because there's definitely good news. When you just look at the big picture mechanical properties, the stuff you can actually measure from the outside, boron is a total champ. The data is super clear. Adding it consistently makes the steel stronger and harder. Yeah, the data showed what they called full stability, which is awesome. Yield strength and tensile strength both went up, predictably. Hardness, same deal, went up. The only thing that went down was elongation. That's how much it can stretch before snapping. But even that change was fully stable. So basically, the steel gets stronger, but a little less flexible, which is a trade-off you pretty much always expect to see. Okay, but here's the twist. Here's where it gets complicated. Because while the outside of the steel looks great, what's happening on the inside, down at the microscopic structural level, that's a whole different story. You see, steel isn't just one uniform thing. It's made of different crystal structures called phases. And this chart here shows the temperatures where those phases form and dissolve. And as you can see, the data is just all over the place. It's a mess. So to try and make sense of this mess, the researchers broke it down and looked at the stability of each individual phase. And what they found was fascinating. Some of the internal structures became fully stable. Awesome, that's what we want. But others only became partially stable, and some showed no stability at all. Their behavior was just chaotic and unpredictable. So in other words, boron was creating both order and chaos inside the steel at the very same time. And that tells us something absolutely critical. More isn't always better. You can't just keep dumping more and more boron in and expect things to get better. There has to be a sweet spot, right? a perfect recipe to get all the benefits without all that chaos. And finding that sweet spot is exactly what the next part of this research was all about. And this slide shows it perfectly. Look at the left here. This is what happened when they tested a really wide range of boron, going all the way up to 2,000 parts per million. See how scattered those results are? It's totally wild and unpredictable. But now, look at the right. This is a new, much smaller, designed range. And wow, that scatters so much smaller. The outcome is way, way more predictable. I mean, the numbers really speak for themselves. By just narrowing down that recipe, they cut the unpredictability of the internal phases by a whopping 52%, and they reduced the variation in the final properties by 32%. That is a massive, massive gain in reliability. So what is it? What is this magic range? After all this incredibly detailed research, what's the secret number? It all comes down to this: 350 parts per million. That's it. That's the sweet spot. The research identified this as the optimal upper limit. Go any higher than that, and you start getting more chaos than benefit. This is the amount that gives you that perfect combination of strength, hardness, and internal predictability. It's just incredible when you think about it. Just 350 tiny parts in a million can completely transform a material, taking it from unpredictable to rock-solid reliable. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other tiny ingredients are out there, just waiting for us to find them? The ones that will build the next generation of super materials that could take us to the stars.